This is this very issue that was brought up about how the money will be used is something that I would like to see addressed. So I'll pass out a proposed change. We're going to advertise this ordinance and this tax to provide funds for police, fire, and parks and recreation services. And I think some people will vote for it because it supports police, and others because it supports the fire department, and some because it supports parks and recreation. I would want to make sure that each one of those functions, police, fire, and parks and recreation services, get an amount that is not a token amount, but is a real portion of the revenues. So what this proposal that I handed out states, and it says, police, fire, and parks recreation services shall each receive a minimum of 20% of the cannabis tax revenues annually. So that means that there would be 40% of the cannabis tax revenues that could be given at the discretion of the council to police, fire, and parks and recreation. Any one department could theoretically get 60% of the revenues from the cannabis tax, and then the other two departments would get the other 20% each. What this was trying to avoid is a situation where it might happen that the police department gets 90% of the tax, or the fire department gets 90% of the tax, and the other two only get 5% of the tax. I think if we were to do that, people would feel like we had tricked them when we advertised this tax as something that was going to support police, fire, and parks and recreation services.
I'm open-minded still. I'm supportive of what Mr. Bawamdi is seeking, but I have a number of concerns.
Well, let me ask you this. If those changes theoretically happen to be made, does that mess up our timeline for June? Because if so, then I don't want to support that.
I would leave it as written, and so I would again call for the question like Councilmember Blake had asked.
If you talk to people about Measure C, and you talk to people about how Parks and Recreation in particular has been treated over the last 8 years, there's a strong feeling that the council may not allocate cannabis tax money in a significant amount to Parks and Recreation. If it turns out that like 5% of the money goes to Parks and Recreation, those people who voted in favor of it or campaigned in favor of it because of it helping Parks and Recreation and youth services are going to feel betrayed. And I think we need to avoid that.
In short, you have three choices. The first one, it sets aside 20% for parks or recreation services. That's option 2 is a 20-20-20 option. And then a third option is to do nothing and keep what you approved on February 20th.
Yep. So just to sort of give the background here, right? We've conducted 3 town hall meetings since we enacted this ordinance, and have received a lot of feedback from our residents in favor of option 2, which is the 20-20-20 allocation. And that's why we're here tonight. We mentioned that we would come back and talk about it. With that, I do want to share my support for option 2.
The feedback we received at the town halls was pretty overwhelming regarding the need to improve park services and recreation services.
I will just say that I support allocating 20% for each as well.
I too favor option 2, where we guarantee 20% to police, fire, and parks and recreation services. We're trying to get people to vote for this tax, and I think some people are more concerned about police, or more concerned about fire, or more concerned about parks and recreation. Whichever one is kind of their area of most concern, I think it's useful for them to see that each one of those functions is getting guaranteed some funding for sure from this 20% minimum.
Having gone through several town halls, I think the public has been pretty clear that they want there to be more specificity about how the money gets allocated. So I'm behind making sure that each of these services is allocated 20%.
Councilmember Blake?
I'm interested, and I think that the main issue is the 20% for Parks and Rec. I'd move to approve option 2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Blake and a second by Councilmember Belwomany for option 2. The motion will include the adoption of Resolution 2018-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Merced, California, rescinding and replacing Resolution 2018-10 and calling a special municipal election to be held on June 5th, 2018, for the purpose of submitting a commercial cannabis business tax to the electorate. Mayor and Council, please cast your votes. Motion unanimously carries.